The Liberty Bell in Philadelphia was commissioned in 1751 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of William Penn's charter. On it was inscribed, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof," which is a verse from Leviticus found in this week's Torah portion, Bahar. And the verse right before "Proclaim liberty" says that we should hallow the 50th year, the Jubilee. So it was very fitting that that bell was commissioned for the 50th anniversary of Penn's 1701 charter. In 1776, the Liberty Bell rang to summon the citizens of Philadelphia to hear the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence. Liberty for all inhabitants has been an aspiration long before our country was even born. Now, what does it mean to have liberty? It's not just about doing what we please or freedom from physical restraint. It includes the positive enjoyment of social and political and economic rights. In the context of Parshat Bahar, our Jewish tradition also teaches that there can be no liberty without a basic measure of economic stability. That debt is a form of subjugation. We see that kind of financial distress far and wide in this country, and sometimes very close to home. One of the first indelible snapshots I saw firsthand was when we had hired a full-time caregiver for our young babies many years ago. She was loving with Gabriel and Eli, fun and dependable. But as we got to know each other, I could see something was weighing on her, and I asked her what was wrong. She shared that she was saddled with crushing debt that was only growing. Earlier in the year, when she was in between jobs, her son had had a medical condition. She took him to a specialist who saved his eyesight, but she had no health care, nor $2,000 for the bill. So she put her debt on a 0% interest credit card, which soon became a 22% interest credit card when the promotional period expired. Now with a job, she was making small, steady payments back, but the interest was accruing faster than she could ever pay it down. By the time she told us her story, she now owed $3,000 and could not imagine how she would ever have a path out of owing for the rest of her life. This, of course, affected her credit rating, her ability to get any other kind of loan, not to mention her mental health. The Bible understood that debt, at best, restricted our liberty. At worst, it could literally enslave you. In ancient times, a bad crop year, a long illness, or just a string of bad luck could cause someone to be in such financial calamity that they would be forced to sell themselves or their children into slavery. But the Bible aspired for us to, remember the quote, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants." Our tradition knew that this would not just magically happen, that it would have to take some extreme measures to help restore liberty lost from economic destitution, desperation, and disaster. So they offered some very radical Torah in Bahar. That every 7 years in the Shemitah, or sabbatical year, we would forgive debt. What an incredible thing, to give everyone a fresh start every 7 years. Now, I will be honest. Scholars say that it is unlikely that this was truly practiced widely, even in biblical times. But it is noteworthy that this was the aspiration of our Torah, even if it was not always realized in practice. We understand what it means to not always live up to our stated principles in our country as well, a country that has proclaimed liberty for all people, even as we held some enslaved. The Liberty Bell actually became an icon when abolitionists adopted it as the symbol for their movement. The cracked bell continues to be an apt metaphor for our aspirations of a country that has not yet fully realized full liberty for all inhabitants. Every day, almost 80 million Americans choose between paying their medical bills and basic needs like food and shelter. 2/3 of all bankruptcies are tied to medical debt issues in this country. And 1/4 of all credit card debt is medical debt. We're not talking about the debt people take on when buying a new car or putting down a house mortgage. We're talking about necessary, often life-saving medical bills. This year, 5782, also known as 2022, is actually the sabbatical year, as calculated from biblical times every 7 years since Judaism began counting. Now, what if this sabbatical year we could each help one family come out from medical debt and come one step closer to the Torah's ideal of liberty for all? It would not be easy to do as individuals, as Jacob and I tried to do with our babysitter 20 years ago, but if we do this as a community, it is possible. You see, there are billions of dollars of medical debt that many hospitals and institutions have almost given up on getting paid. They will sell bundles of this bad debt for pennies on the dollar to debt collectors who then do the hard work of trying to go out and collect on it. 2 former debt collectors, after decades in the business and hearing the stories of how people got into medical debt, decided that they would rather buy bundles of debt not to profit from it, but to forgive it. In 2014, they created a nonprofit called RIP, R-I-P, Medical Debt. And in the last 8 years, churches and synagogues, corporations, and individual donors have raised funds to forgive medical debt worth over $6 billion, owed by over 3.5 million American families. Every dollar that you donate relieves $100 of debt, meaning if you give $50, you will relieve a family of $5,000 of medical debt. That's an amazing return. I invite each one of us, and that includes all of you who are watching on live stream as well, to help us realize the sabbatical goal of debt amnesty this year by donating the cost of a dinner out, whether that is for you $20 or $100. And with that, know that you could relieve a family of anywhere between $2,000 or $10,000 of debt. This organization not only sends a letter to the family telling them that someone has forgiven their debt, but it helps them clear their credit record as well so they can start their life over, their financial life over. Our weekly email on Sunday will have a link to RIP Medical Debt, and our campaign is live on the website, and I will also put it on my Facebook post for anyone who's watching as well. I hope that every single one of us will participate at any level. Nothing is too small. Even $18 is a life-saving $1,800 of debt relief. In this sabbatical year, we can bring a small measure of economic justice to families who are impoverished by medical debt, with an opportunity for a fresh start, just as the Torah intended. Let our Torah's values ring throughout the land. Let us help proclaim liberty throughout all the land for all the inhabitants. Amen.